$9. Black plastic pot, back end of the 90s. That is what the shrub by your front door cost. Getting it out is going to cost you a weekend and a rented mattock. That is the part nobody warns you about. A perennial you regret, you dig out before lunch. A shrub you regret, you fight for a decade and it fights back with roots under the walk and seedlings in the neighbor's woods. 11 shrubs I regret. And I'll say this at the front. Nearly everyone came off a shelf I stood behind for 34 years. One of them drops 6,000 seeds a year, and it's the dwarf version, the one the tag calls compact and well-behaved. Another sits under a federal quarantine reissued this March, and number 1 is the one I'd take out first, even if you only ever get to one. Number 11, Forsythia. Now here's the thing. You have read that Forsythia is invasive. It is not. Not on a single state's noxious weed list, and the garden hybrid nearly all of us grow has no naturalized populations in this country. There's a good reason for that. Forsythia flowers come in 2 builds, and a plant can only be pollinated by the other kind. Every Forsythia sold in America is a cutting off the same handful of clones. So they stand there in a row, all identical, all incapable of pollinating each other, setting empty capsules year after year. So no, it is not seeding into the woods. What it is doing is getting enormous. NC State puts a mature plant at 8 to 10 feet tall and 10 to 12 wide, and I have never once seen somebody leave it that much room. And it creeps, not by root, by the branch tips. Every arching stem that touches soil roots where it lands, and that new crown throws its own stems the year after. Do that for 15 years, and the thing has walked 4 feet into the lawn. Then there's the flowering. Wisconsin's extension is blunt. On the older cultivars, flower buds start dying around 5 below zero. Not the plant, just the buds. So in a Zone 4 winter, you get flowers on the bottom 18 inches, where the snow covered them, and nothing above. A 10-foot shrub with a skirt of yellow. I sold hundreds of them. Want the same March yellow without the wrestling match? Spice bush, same timing, same color, well-mannered, and it feeds the spice bush swallowtail. And do not shear Forsythia after mid-July to keep it down. It flowers on old wood. All you're cutting off is next spring. Number 10, Rose of Sharon. I'm going to be fair to this one, because most lists are not. It is not banned anywhere. I went through Massachusetts, Wisconsin, Ohio, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, and it is on none of their regulated lists. If somebody tells you Rose of Sharon is an ecological catastrophe, they have not looked it up. The regret is smaller than that and more annoying, and it happens every single year. It seeds. Virginia Tech's write-up says it plainly. It self-sows and throws populations of seedlings around the parent plant. NC State tags it weedy and aggressive. In practice, that means 100 little hibiscus in your beds each spring. In the gravel, in the gutter, in the crack where the walk meets the step. Everyone with a taproot that says no when you pull it. And it is a big shrub, 8 to 12 feet, flowering in August when nothing else is, which is exactly why people keep buying it. Now the part the garden center gets wrong. You have been told the newer varieties are sterile. Diana, Aphrodite, Helene, Minerva. People who bred them, the National Arboretum, about as close to the source as you can get, do not use that word. They say reduced fertility, little seed production. Diana is a hexaploid with lowered fertility. The triploids set fruit that is mostly dead ovules, rarely more than 1 to 3 half-formed seeds. That is a lot better. That is not zero. Buy them for the flower, not for the promise. If you want the same late summer trumpet from something native, Swamp rose mallow covers most of Zone 4 through 8. Number 9. Japanese spirea, little pink mound, 3 feet if that. Sold by the thousand every spring, usually a whole bench of them under a sign that says low maintenance. Here's what makes it a regret rather than a nuisance. Penn State describes seedlings coming up right beside the parent plant, and you cannot tell them apart. So you don't weed them. You look at the bed and think that clump has filled in nicely. And what happened is you now own 5 spireas where you bought 1. Then the bit almost nobody mentions. The seeds float. If your spirea sits anywhere near a ditch, a swale, a low spot that runs after a storm, you are not seeding your yard. You are seeding everything downstream of you. Pennsylvania has it at rank 1, severe threat, for exactly that reason. Each plant makes hundreds of seeds a year, not thousands, whatever you have read. Hundreds. That is plenty. And I want to head something off, because it is the same lie in a different pot. You will see spireas advertised as seedless. There is no university trial confirming a sterile Japanese spirea. Not one. That word on the tag is a marketing department's word, not a researcher's. Timing, and I'd rather tell you than sell you. Seed on this plant ripens in July and August. In Zone 6 or warmer, it is already ripe, and some of it is already gone. So today's job is not leisurely. Cut the flower heads off, bag them, put them in the trash, not the compost pile. Then take the shrub out at your own pace. The native version is steeplebush, same pink, taller spike, hardy to Zone 3. One more thing while we're on the subject of what to plant instead. A friend of mine, Henry, and I wrote a book together. It's called Low Maintenance Garden Blueprint, and it's at henrysgardensecrets.com. It's the long version of everything I do in this garden. I only mention it because I get asked the same question every week. Where do I actually start? And that is the honest answer to it. Back to the list. Number 8. Scotch broom. East of the Rockies, you can rest easy. Anywhere from Northern California up through Oregon and Washington, this is the most expensive plant on the list, and it stays expensive after the shrub is gone. King County's weed program puts one plant at around 10,000 seeds a year, but the seeds are not the problem. The soil is. They sit in the ground alive for decades. The agencies argue about the number. The Forest Service says at least 5 years, and possibly 30. King County's manual says 5 to 60. But nobody argues about the shape of it. And they measure that seed bank at up to 2,000 seeds in 1 square foot of dirt. So you take the shrub out, you feel good about it, and for the next 20 years, you are weeding its children. The pods don't drop the seed either. They dry, they twist, and they crack open like a rifle shot and throw seed 3 feet, sometimes 20. Now here's the one genuinely good piece of news on this whole list, and it belongs to August. Cut it now, in the dry. King County's control manual says a plant older than 5 years, cut at ground level during late summer drought stress, comes back only about 20% of the time. And do not pull it. I know that sounds backwards, but pulling turns the soil over, and that is the one thing that wakes the seed bank up. Their manual says it flat out. Cut. Don't dig. Bag the pods. For that same yellow out west, Oregon grape, evergreen, hardy to Zone 5, stays put. Pause here a second and do me a favor. Drop a comment with the number you have got growing and your state next to it. That second part matters more than you'd think. Half what's on this list is a serious problem in one part of the country and barely anything in another. And the map in the comments tells me which one deserves its own video. I read every one of them. Number 7. Butterfly bush. I want to do this one properly because the claim going around about it is wrong, and I'd rather hand you the argument that holds. The wrong one first. You have heard that butterfly bush nectar is junk food, too sugary, empty calories, the candy bar of the border. Maryland Extension looked at that, and their wording is about as direct as Extension people get. Likely accurate, because the studies of nectar concentration in this plant put it in the normal range for flowers butterflies prefer, so drop that one. The nectar is fine. Here is the one that survives. Nothing can be born on it. Penn State's phrasing is that not a single native caterpillar is able to feed on it. Monarch larvae eat milkweed and only milkweed. Everything else has its own short list, and this plant is on nobody's. The Xerces Society has the best line I've read on what that adds up to. A garden of nectar with no host plants is one butterflies are happy to pass through, but they will not stay to make the next generation. It's a filling station. You built a filling station and called it a home, and it does not stay put. One flower spike, can throw over 40,000 seeds. They stay viable 3 to 5 years. They move on wind and water, and a plant can be seeding in its first season. Oregon rates it a noxious weed under quarantine. Washington since 2006. But an exception for cultivars testing under 2% viable seed, and Oregon keeps a list of 14 that qualify. So, check the state list, not the label. This is the month for it. Oregon State puts cut stump treatment at late summer into early fall. And do not leave the cut stems lying on the ground. They root. The swap I'd make is buttonbush. Blooms midsummer when you need it, and unlike the butterfly bush, it is a host plant. 3 moths raise their young on it. Number 6, autumn olive, silver leaves, small speckled red berries, sweet scented in May. A whole generation of us planted it on purpose because for 30 years the conservation people handed it out as wildlife cover. I sold flats of them. Everybody did. The Forest Service put a number on what one mature plant does in a year, 30 pounds of fruit. About 3 pounds of that is seed. Roughly 66,000 seeds off one shrub every year. And everyone goes wherever a bird decides to sit. And it starts young, fruiting at 3 to 5 years old, when it is still 4 to 8 feet tall. No grace period. Now the part that separates this from everything else here. Autumn olives is nitrogen. Nodules on the roots, pulling nitrogen out of the air and putting it in your soil. That sounds like a favor. It isn't. Michigan State's control manual explains why. The plants that belong on a poor, thin site are the ones adapted to a poor, thin site. Feed that ground, and you have not helped them. You have handed it to the weeds that were waiting for exactly that. Which means, when you take an autumn olive out, the ground it stood on is not the ground it started on. That is a rare thing for a shrub to do. Good news, it does not build a lasting seed bank. Unlike the broom, once the parent plants are gone, reinvasion comes from live shrubs nearby, not from the dirt. Removal, do not just cut it. Cutting a mature one makes it come back harder. Cut stump with triclopyr, and July through September is the window, so you're in it. Yukon says don't hand pull anything thicker than 3.5 inches. You'll snap it and leave the root. Northern bayberry gives you the same silver gray up north. Number 5. Winter creeper. You bought this as a ground cover. It came in a flat, described as evergreen and tidy and good under trees, and for 6 or 7 years it was exactly that. Here is the switch nobody tells you about. Maryland's explains it in one line. Only the vines that climb will flower and fruit. Flat on the ground, it does not seed. The moment a stem finds something vertical, a trunk, a wall, a fence post, it goes up. And up there it starts making berries, and birds carry those into the woods. So, the mat you tolerated for a decade becomes a seed factory the week it reaches your maple. Now I need to correct something, because I've had it wrong myself and somebody set me straight. It does not strangle a tree. It climbs on little rootlets along the stem like English ivy. It never wraps the trunk, so there is nothing to tighten. What it does is smother the tree's own leaves from the outside and pile enough weight up there that wind and ice take limbs that would otherwise have held. And on the ground, that mat is dense enough that nothing gets started underneath it, so the woods stop replacing themselves. Slower than strangling. Ends in the same place. 3 states have banned selling it. Maryland in 2018, Indiana in 2020, Maine at the start of 2024. Ohio has not. And here's the one that stings. A genetic study out of 2023 sampled in populations of this plant and found every single one identical to one cultivar. Coloratus, the purple-leaf winter creeper, the one sold as the well-mannered garden form. Pennsylvania lists mowing, burning, and growing season, spraying as ineffective. That waxing leaf will not take herbicide in the heat. So this month, cut the climbing vines off the trunk and paint the lower cut right away. The mat waits after first frost. Allegheny spurge is the native version. Number 4. Privet, the hedge plant of the American 20th century. My grandmother had 30 feet of it in a pair of hand shears, and twice a summer that hedge was a whole Saturday. What makes privet a regret is not that it spreads. It's what happens when you decide to deal with it. Ohio State's fact sheet says it's straight. Cut privet at ground level and it sprouts prolifically and increases the number of stems. You spend a weekend with a saw, you stand back, and next June there are 4 stems where one used to be, all whippy, all in your face. The man who cut it has a worse hedge than the man who ignored it. It layers on top of that, rooting wherever a branch touches. And Chinese privet suckers off a wide, shallow root system, so the thicket walks outward while you're busy with the middle of it. Hundreds of fruits per plant, and even a stem under an inch thick is making them. Seedlings survive in 10 to 15% of full sunlight, which is why it fills a shaded woodlot where nothing else will start. 2 real bands worth knowing. Pennsylvania, Japanese, Chinese, European, and border privet class B noxious weeds. No selling, no transporting, no planting as of January 2025. And Ohio, the sale of common privet as of January this year. Now the good news, because privet has some. Its seed mostly germinates right after it drops and does not sit in the soil the way broom does. About a year, then it's spent. This is a site that recovers. Timing runs different here. Cut now and treat the stumps. But the best spray window on privet is November into January, because it holds its leaves after everything native around it has dropped. And that is when you can hit it and nothing else. Black Haw viburnum does the same job. Number 3, burning bush. October, and the whole thing goes the color of a fire truck. There's no arguing with it. That is why it's sold, and it's sold in the millions. Here is the number that ends the conversation. A study out of Connecticut took 9 burning bush cultivars and counted what each produced. 981 to 6,090 seeds a year per plant. From that, they worked out the seedlings each mature shrub puts out annually, between 588 and 3,700. Now the part that got me, because I sold the answer to this problem for years. The highest producer of the 9, 6,090, was compactus, the dwarf, the compact one, the one we all recommended to people with small yards as the sensible choice. It tolerates full shade under a forest canopy, which is why it doesn't stay in yards. Wisconsin says it dominates the shrub layer of hardwood forests. It gets to 20 feet, incidentally, whatever the tag said. Where it stands legally, be careful here. A lot of videos get this wrong. New Hampshire prohibited it in 2004. Massachusetts banned in propagation as of January 2009. Maine has it not sell list. Minnesota bans propagation and sale. Connecticut passed a ban in 2025 with a 3-year runway. Still legal to buy there today. Not as of October 2028. New York did not ban. New York regulates it. Legal to sell as long as the seller labels it an invasive species. Different thing. Ohio isn't on the list at all. And Massachusetts is clear about the part people panic over. The rule does not touch a plant already standing in your yard. It re-sprouts off stumps and roots, so cutting alone gets you nowhere. For that red, honest match, red chokeberry, brilliantissima. Yukon's database calls it a fine native substitute for burning bush in those words. Hardy to zone 4, not Fothergilla. That gives you yellow, orange, and burgundy. If this is the first time you've landed on this channel, subscribe. One a week that earn their space in an American yard, and the ones that only look like they will. Number 2, Boxwood. This one is different from everything else here, and I put it this high on purpose. Boxwood is not invasive. It doesn't seed anywhere. It has done nothing wrong. You are just going to lose. 2 things arrived, and they arrived together. Boxwood blight turned up in North America in October of 2011. North Carolina, Connecticut in the same month. 20-some states now. And the hard part isn't that it kills the shrub. It's that fungicides protect a healthy plant, but do not cure a sick one. There is no saving an infected boxwood. Then it gets worse. The fungus leaves survival structures in the soil that stay infectious 5 to 6 years. And Extension's advice is not to replant boxwood there. So you lose the hedge and then the ground it stood on. It travels on things you'd never suspect. Nursery stock, sure. But also boxwood greenery cut for Christmas decorating. Your pruners, your sleeve, your boots. Now the second thing is the newest item in this video. Box tree moth. There's a federal quarantine on it. Federal Order DA 202611, 1st of March this year. All of Delaware, Massachusetts, and West Virginia, plus counties in Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. The caterpillars strip it bare and then start on the bark, and that kills it. And there is no resistant variety. USDA researchers pulled 6 studies covering 131 different boxwoods and found no type at all. Only Continuum, Little Miss, and Winter Gem at the better end. English boxwood at the worst. If yours is healthy and you love it, keep it. I'm not going to tell a man to rip out a good hedge. Just know what you're holding, and when it goes, put inkberry in and stop fighting. Diseased boxwood goes double-bagged to the landfill, or burned. Never the compost, never curb. Number 1, Nandina, Heavenly Bamboo. April 2009, Thomas County, Georgia. A flock of cedar waxwing went down in somebody's yard. 5 went to the University of Georgia, and the necropsies showed crops packed with Nandina berries and hemorrhage through the lungs and heart, consistent with cyanide. I'll be careful here because everybody else isn't. No cyanide was ever measured. 5 birds were examined, not the dozens you'll read. 1 documented event, not something that happens every winter. Still enough for me. But here's what nobody tells you. The leaves are strongly cyanogenic all year. The ripe red berries, the part everyone fears, test weekly, slowly, and some not at all. And the sterile cultivars aren't sterile. In the Florida trials, Gulfstream said 141 fruits. Not one state bans it. Cut the berries off before the birds come through. Then dig it out and plant winter holly, which those waxwings can eat, 11 of them. And I want to be honest about my part. Most were on my shelf, with a tag I did not write and never thought to question, and I handed them to people who trusted me. You don't have to do all 11. Do the one that's worst in your yard this weekend while the ground still works. Tell me below which one you found out there. Whichever number comes up most gets its own video. And get the pods and the berries into a bag before you touch anything else. That part cannot wait for fall.